Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show in which we continually try to learn new things from people who know nothing. And we come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and special guest today, Satsu2Cents. Yay!
What up, Dow?
Yes, Satsu is finally here for the wonderment that is TEDXcellence. I've had Tailed Feature on, I've had Blind Press, I've had Ranting Monkey, and finally, Satsu. How are you doing today, Satsu?
Pretty good. It's been a very peaceful day.
Well, that's all about to change. Because your mind is about to be blown by the brilliance that is TEDx.
Oh, boy.
But who is joining us on this amazing odyssey of education today? Why, that would be Tales of Gore. Hello. Aloysius Fudpucker. Hello. Black Belt for Christ. Hello. Mr. Joestar. Hello. The Luke Skywalker 2. Hello. That's that one servant of Satania. Hello. Giverdam. Hello. His kitten. Hello. Thank you, Point Curation. Quote, you may live to see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension, unquote. Rely on utopians to bring about dystopia through their machinations. I like machinations. It's a good word. It's a fun word. So I used it in the thumbnail. And who else is here? Zemgoa, hello. And then I got to jump down a bit. Shiogorath, hello. Richo8181, hello. Who's next on the list? Somnambule Nation, hello. Drew W, hello. Purple Pill Perspective, hello. John Smith, hello. Cultist4, hello. Spiro Girl, hello. Or Spyro Girl, perhaps. Crimson Tiger, hello. Lady Gopher, hello. Eseth, hello. Dean B, hello. Fernanda, hello. Thank you, the gayest person on YouTube. One, please. Well, one you shall have. Roger Reynolds, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Zero the Hero 909, hello. This is Kyle. Thank you so much. Hello, chat people, Scribbles, and Satsu. Hello, Kyle. Etcetera, hello. Sultan Al Fahim, hello. Kyler, hello. Who else? I think that's everybody. Oh, and Lady Gopher, thank you so much for the Dog Cat Fox. Big smiley face Dog Cat Fox. Oh boy. And Omegon says moist. Because of course it does. Moist. Anna Clark, hello. Rolling Bear, hello. And Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Okay, guys. So have your bingo cards ready. Link is in the description. Don't know what we're going to be up against today, except for the fact that the title is How Racial Bias Works and How to Disrupt It. So conceivably, we're going to be taught things and then taught how to destroy those things.
Sounds fun.
Sounds like entering the army or something. Sir Jim, hello. And Sir Shaggy, hello. Jonathan Peterson, hello. All right, so this will be... have you watched many TEDx's or TEDs in the past?
Not many. I've seen some, but I usually don't have the patience to sit through them.
Well, then I have a captive audience, or at least our speaker does. So far as I can tell, this is a one-person, one-camera thing, as in post-lockdown social distancing TEDx.
Right.
So it'll be one of those kind of things. But they did take the time to insert a false audience to applaud. So
of course.
We'll start off with that. So everyone, per usual, I'll let the first few seconds play so you can tell me that the sound comes through all right. And once I get that confirmed, we will proceed.
Some years ago, I was on an airplane with my son who was...
Ooh, an airplane with her son. Oh boy, you guys hear all that? Applause, an airplane with her son.
All right.
Let's see. Hammond Bean says Scribe is holding Satsu hostage. Sort of.
A little bit.
Let's see. Some ammunition says sounds nifty. Nifty? Ooh, okay. I'm going to back up just a second because I did cut her off. Didn't mean to, technically. All right, here we go.
So I was on an airplane with my son, who was just 5 years old at the time. Okay,
she's on an airplane with her son, 5 years old. We have to take account of these facts as we proceed. So we can assess, like, does an anecdote sound like something that actually happened? Regardless, she is giving us an anecdote. And so that's our first square on the bingo card. So we'll circle free space and childhood or family anecdotes. So we're already 2 squares up, guys. Let's go on.
My son was so excited about being on this airplane with mommy. He's looking all around and he's checking things out and he's checking people out.
Uh-huh.
And he sees this man and he says, hey, that guy looks like Daddy.
Uh-oh.
Mm-mm.
I wonder what Daddy looks like. What do you think Daddy looks like?
A black man.
Or like, and Mom says, no, dear, that's just another bum.
Oh, bruh. Bruh.
I know.
And I look at the man and he didn't look anything at all like my husband. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all? At all. Okay. I'm curious. Tell me more.
And so then I start looking around on the plane and I noticed this man was the only black guy on the plane.
At all.
At all.
At all. Okay. The only, okay, all right. So your son wasn't wrong after a fashion.
Wouldn't this mean she's guilty of keeping her kids away from people who apparently look different, and since he seems to identify people he recognizes exactly the same?
I don't know. I suppose we'll find out. Because I got my biggest question right now is she about to effectively vilify her son because of his racial bias or something?
And I thought, all right.
Yes.
I'm going to have a little talk with my son about how not all black people look alike.
Your 5-year-old son, 5 years old, sees someone who resembles his father in a very surface level way, as in how children process things, and you're going to have to talk to your son. Because your son was what? Acting white or something?
Listen here, you little shit.
I can't even imagine what that conversation was like. Don't you ever look at anyone again and compare them to your father. Jesus.
My son, he lifts his head up and he says to me,
Yes. Yes.
I hope he doesn't rob the plane.
Horse. Okay, anecdote that probably never happened. Horse shit.
So wait a minute.
Horse shit.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Just so I got this right.
Yeah.
He looked up.
Yes.
And saw somebody who was also black and said, that looks like Daddy.
Mm.
And the first thing he thought is, I hope he doesn't rob the plane. Ma'am, who did you have a child with?
Well, yeah. Okay. Now, if she comes back and says, my child's father was a bank robber.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it back. I will take back the circle. Okay. But are you, well, we're not even a minute into this. Really? My 5-year-old said, I hope he doesn't rob the plane.
After he said he looks just like Daddy.
Yeah. All right.
And I said, what?
Yeah, that's what I said.
What did you say?
That's what I said.
He says, well, I hope that man doesn't rob the plane. And I said, well, why would you say that?
Yeah, why would you say that, 5-year-old?
Look, he's in the background like, yeah, bitch, why would I say that?
You know, Daddy wouldn't rob a plane.
Well, what does Dad do for a living? You haven't told us.
He robs buses.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he gets on a horse and he robs trains.
And he says, yeah, well, I know. And I said, well, why would you say that?
Yeah, I'm dying. Tell me.
And he looked at me with this really sad face.
Uh-huh.
And he says,
yes.
I don't know why I said that.
Oh my God. The unconscious, internalized racism of a 5-year-old.
Your child is smart enough to make said connection, but he's not smart enough to tell you why he did it.
Yeah, isn't it though? Yeah, especially that particular connection.
Yeah, I've raised my kid to be selectively stupid.
I don't know why I was thinking that.
Oh.
We are living with such severe racial stratification that even a 5-year-old can tell us what's supposed to happen next.
Look at the look in her face. Oh my God.
What's supposed to happen next, Scribe? Did you catch that?
Yeah, like what's supposed to happen next? Like,
yeah.
even a 5-year. So wait, your 5-year-old whose entire world probably extends about as many as 4 feet away from your side, I am assuming.
At any given moment.
At any given moment of the day. I mean, maybe he started preschool. Maybe, I don't know. Either way, this kid's worldview is such that A, he can't explain to you why he said what he said, even though he articulated it very well to begin with. But B, you're looking any further than yourself for why he might be thinking these things. You're trying to take the blame off you or your family or somebody. I don't know. I don't know what the kid spends his time with, or his dad. What's his dad do? Again, does he just like hijack planes for a living?
Yeah, I'm calling extra bullshit on this one.
Even with no evildoer, even with no explicit hatred. This association between Blackness and crime made its way into the mind of my 5-year-old.
Yeah, okay, well, all right. Let's stipulate for a moment, just for the sake of argument, that this kid said exactly what he said, and she says he said it, and so on. Okay, now, who do you think she's going to lay the blame for that presumption on? Is she going to lay it on society, or is she going to look at herself?
Well, it's 150,000% not going to be her fault. Okay. Because that, from what I've learned when it comes to activism, especially Blacktivism, is no road leads to us. Like, it is never, ever our fault. That is always never an option. So, yeah, I highly doubt. I would be very surprised if she was like, "Then the responsibility falls on me." I'm like, oh shit.
I found it's always a very dangerous prospect for TEDx speakers, or I assume speakers in general, but for TEDx speakers in particular, to use their own children as props and or examples in their speeches. Because you got to be very careful as to exactly how you're using. The last couple of speakers I've seen who use their children as, active examples of whatever they were talking about, all they did was make themselves out to sound like absolute atrocious parents.
Right.
Because it's like, even my child is, as though their child is some distant concept that they have no connection to, and they're a victim of the world when they're like 3 or something.
Yeah. Like, you are responsible for at least the first 4 years to teach your child literally everything they know. So
you should be asking yourself, why does your child think that? Maybe what goes on at your house? What do you say about people? What comments do you or your husband make about people or the world? Or do you practice any kind of, racial stratification in your own talks at your house?
Well, and also, this is another thing, too, that really drives this point home and actually solidifies our commentary on the fact that she knows better. Like, she knows what the real situation is and what the reality is. Because if we were talking about a white kid who was on the bus and her examination right now, or on a train or plane or whatever, her examination was this kind of going on between that white parent and their white kid, what do you think her narrative would be?
Good point.
Yeah. What do you think her narrative would be? What are they teaching that child at home?
Right. Very good. Yeah.
So we know she but the people she's talking to, she presumes is as stupid as she hopes they are. So here we are.
Very good point.
It makes its way into all of our children.
No, we're talking about your child.
Yeah, and this is another tactic we've talked about before, Scribe.
Yeah.
Whenever they identify a problem with their situation, their kid, or their life, they have to justify it or find some way to make it a larger issue by saying, "No, this is everybody's problem, not just mine." Yeah.
No, they have to dilute the concept away from themselves and into society.
Yeah, it's a problem that everybody's kids is a racist like mine. No. It's just your kid.
Into all of us. Our minds are shaped by the racial disparities we see out in the world.
No, they're shaped by the people who are raising us, first and foremost. First and foremost, at that age, at 5, That kid only knows what you've told them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, admittedly, maybe you let them watch television and you let them watch Fox News or I don't know. But the ultimate part of that is you let them. Whatever you've exposed your children to, however you've taught them to that point, that's on you. So whatever that kid was thinking or wherever you got that notion was something within the world you control. Unless you're not controlling it at all. If you've been a helicopter parent or something and just let your kid do whatever, well, I'll tell you.
And the narratives that help us to make sense of the disparities we see. Those people are criminal. Those people are violent. Those people are to be feared.
Oh, you mean white people, right? She's talking about whites, right?
Right.
Because that was a narrative taught in almost every black home in my neighborhood.
When my research team brought people into our lab and
wait, you have a research team and you have a lab. Okay, so we have. I have no idea who this lady is or what she does. So you see, one of the things I always pay attention to in these things is I only ever really get interested in what their job is or their area of expertise if they themselves bring it up and make it part of their argument.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's irrelevant. I mean, if it starts out by saying, here's Joe Smith, PhD or something, I'll be like, oh, okay, well, they got a PhD in something. But in this instance, I don't know who she is. But now she's telling us, okay, so she's got a lab, she's done research. So we're talking from a science/academic basis here. All right, I'll put that into my considerations. Thank you, Drew W. Must be all the kids' YouTube shows he watches.
I guess so.
I've never seen YouTube kid shows. I don't even know what those are.
They are strange.
I can only imagine. And they also can't be monetized as far as I understand anymore. So, okay. So anyway, I backed up a little bit because I did cut her off. Yeah.
When my research team brought people into our lab and exposed them to faces, we found that exposure to black faces led them to see blurry images of guns with greater clarity and speed.
What?
Wait a minute.
What?
Hold on.
Okay, now I've heard about the facial recognition thing before. Okay, this is an experiment that's been done several times in the past where they'll take somebody in and they will measure their brain waves or have some other sort of assessment mechanism where they show you a series of photographs and you classify them as, is this someone who's trustworthy? Is this someone who's not? Or does this make you scared? Something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, the message I get back is, oh, well, the white participants who see the black faces register more fear than the white faces. But even then, the black participants who see black faces also register more fear than the white. So there's like all this racism, etc. Well, supposedly. Now, in this case, she's talking about they see black faces, then they envision blurry images of guns? Like what?
Well, that's what I'm a little confused about. And if that is the case, where does this source come from? Because I know she'll say white people are responsible for this. That's the reason why people think violence whenever they think of blacks, whatever. I'm like, you don't think that black media might be just a little responsible for that too? Considering the fact of what I see shared and posted on literal like media that's specifically created for black people.
Okay, so in the lab, showing pictures of black people and people see guns in their heads or something. Okay.
Bias can not only control what we see, but where we look. We found that prompting people to think of violent crime can lead them to direct their eyes onto a black face and away from a white face.
Okay. I could say something here, but I'm going to wait. Maybe she'll say something else. I don't know.
Prompting police officers to think of capturing and shooting and arresting leads their eyes to settle on black faces too.
We'll come back to, this was recorded, I think, after the George Floyd situation. So that's probably why this is prominent. Okay, so according to her, without citing anything in particular, everybody's racist.
Whenever they think of crime, they think of exclusively black people. That's what
Right.
the narrative is here.
Okay.
And the police statement was kind of weird because it just seems really strange to me, because if a police officer is seeing somebody commit a crime, regardless of whatever color they are, when they see white people commit a crime and see like, that might be a black person in disguise.
Yeah, what exactly? Thank you, tall person. Hoyle just got home from work. I will watch in full later and find out why Satsu is here. Happy National Hamburger Day, everybody. National Hamburger Day. Oh boy, McDonald's must love this day, except their sales are super down because of the pandemic. Let's go to the bingo card real quick. I'm willing to take back circles if she explains later, but for right now, she's given us 2 studies show kind of stuff and hasn't told us like who she is, what studies, anything. I'm taking leaves out vital context. I'm circling that one. Let's see. Self-vilification or wretchedness. Not yet. I don't think she's on that path. Takes credit or blame for something done or experienced by others in their demographic. Credit or blame. Well, she hasn't taken any personal responsibility for anything yet, so I can't put that one. Equity. She hasn't used the word. Microaggression, unconscious bias. She hasn't said it yet. I mean, she's talked about bias. She's intimated to it. If by the end of this she doesn't actually use those words, I might circle it anyway, just out of implication. Gratuitous pausing for effect. That's hard to judge when you're doing somebody who's sitting in a room by themselves.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Patriarchy, no. School to prison pipeline, no. A list, she hasn't made a list yet. Toxic, hasn't used the word. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, not yet. Feminism, no. Marginalization, marginalized. I don't think she's used those words yet. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I mean, she's had a reason. It might not be a reasonable one. We'll wait and see. Word salad. She's trotted the line here and there, and we'll see on that one. Wage gap. She hasn't said anything about that. Speaker should not be in current occupation or position. I don't know what she does, so I can't say. Benevolent condescension. She's kind of done it, hasn't she? A little bit. Well, no, she's talked about people's reaction. She hasn't made any. Okay, I'll leave that one blank for now. Systemic, institutional. She hasn't said the words yet. Plays victim. I bet we'll get there more blatantly than so far, but not yet. Cultural appropriation, no. White supremacy privilege, not yet. So we'll see. Pincala Driving 8 Man, thank you. Is she going to start suggesting minority reports? I don't know what she's suggesting yet. I'm waiting for the point, if there is one.
Bias can infect every aspect of our criminal justice system.
Our criminal justice system. Our criminal justice system is inherently biased. It's inherently biased. It's inherently biased towards, and I know I'm speaking like an idealist here, inherently biased towards justice, finding the truth, due process, giving benefit of the doubt until proven guilty, etc. There is a bias there. Someone comes in and says, this person did a thing. Well, we're not going to punish this person until after they've had due process. So, but if you're talking about like our criminal justice system is biased because it's just going to incarcerate and convict black people because they're black, that's a different thing. And you're going to need to give me some evidence on that one. So, anyway. Evidence. I know, in a criminal justice system, God forbid.
In a large data set of death-eligible defendants, we...
What?
In a large data set of death-eligible defendants.
Death-eligible... So people who've convicted of high crimes and are now on death row?
I guess so.
Okay, I just want to make sure I process that one.
We found that looking more black more than double their chances of receiving a death sentence.
Well, what crimes did they commit? I mean, if you got a death sentence, presumably you've killed somebody. We're talking first-degree murder usually, or I guess on a federal scale, it could be like treason or something, but...
And is this all for the same crime, or is she just like not taking that into account?
And I hate to bring up facts, but what demographic commits the most violent crime statistically, or the murders in our country?
Yeah, but we're only supposed to look at the numbers in those cases. Percentages are only a step for other things that, yeah.
Okay.
At least when their victims were white. This effect is significant.
At least when their victims were white.
Yeah.
So it's
I guess
right.
that played a factor.
It's right that they're not receiving the death penalty if their victims were black. I don't know. Let's see. Sarjim says a social psychologist at Stanford University. Stanford. Oh no.
What the fuck is going on over in Stanford, yo?
Oh, dude, I got a whole playlist. I got a playlist called A Stanford Education. When I first started doing my channel, I came across all this stuff out of Stanford. And every time someone says that they're related to or works at Stanford University, it's usually an absolute trip.
Dude, at this point, like if I was still in the market and I met a girl, she was like, yeah, I graduated from Stanford. I'd be like, you know, I forgot about this other thing I got to go do somewhere else.
All right. Social psychologist at Stanford University. Okay. So that's her job. Now that I know what that is, I can. So she has a lab at Stanford where she showed a bunch of faces. People saw guns and dancing in their heads when they saw black faces, apparently. And according to her, people with death sentences predominantly end up being apparently black, I think she said, or something to that effect.
People who look more black.
Look more black, right.
Yeah.
Look more black. Okay.
Which is
at least when their victims were white.
Yes. Right.
This effect is significant even though we controlled for the severity of the crime and the defendant's attractiveness. And no,
what attractiveness? I didn't know you could control for an abstract.
Apparently they can control for anything as long as they got the they're doing the
okay. Attractiveness, a very subjective notion. And the severity of the crime is always going to be murder. Again, unless we're talking on the federal level where, you know, outright treason or sedition or something, or some kind of military situation can get you a death sentence. But generally speaking, you only get the death penalty for murder. Usually. I don't know that there's many other things that qualify for the death penalty on a state level, let's say. So the severity of the crime is always going to be one thing for the death penalty. Unless you're talking about like, oh, you know, how many victims or something. But then you can get the death penalty for killing one victim or 20. You only have one life to give as punishment for the death penalty.
Right.
Regardless of how bad your crime was. So, okay, back up a little bit.
Of the crime and the defendant's attractiveness. And no matter what we controlled for, we found that Black people were punished in proportion to the Blackness of their physical features.
Okay. Robbed pharmacy and killed. Okay, you know, I'm just not even looking at the faces. Robbed pharmacy and killed owner. Robbed beauty shop and killed owner. So murder was both of them. One got life, one got death.
And
that's it.
The major difference between these dudes looks like lighting. You notice both of these pictures are black and white, right?
Well, that too. But also the other thing too is that there are a lot of other circumstances, and that's not enough information to assess that. And also, it's down to the jury.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was about to say you can't even tell like their actual skin color, like the shine that's on their faces or whatever. That could be a number of things. These pictures could be taken in completely different studios or wherever they took the shot. They made them black and white on purpose, so you can't actually see these people's skin tone. Like this is some shady ass presentation right here.
Well, not only that, but again, each case is different. The circumstances are different. The determination of sentence could be the jury. It could be the judge.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, you don't know. You can't just look at this and say, oh well, this guy got life, therefore he got life because he's lighter skinned than this guy who got death because he's darker skinned. Like, okay, and that's it. That's the only determination.
And at the end of the day, no matter what the result of that conversation is, both of these are black men. So you still don't have a point.
Yeah, and so did the guy on the left, did the person he killed, did their life not matter as much as the life taken on the right because the guy's skin was lighter or something? What am I supposed to take from this without any other information? We controlled for this, we controlled for that. Really? Okay. Can you control for just the vicissitudes of human decision? If you have a jury of 12 and they decide death versus life under different circumstances, you've got 12 different minds in 2 different cases making a different decision.
We're thinking about this way too much. Yeah.
I know. But you see, if she's not, I want to. Thank you, Drew W. One could be in New York and the other one could be in Texas. Yeah, that's also a good point. Where do these cases take place? Was the death penalty even an option in the first case?
That doesn't matter. You're asking way too many questions.
I know. And if I hadn't already circled leaves out vital context, I would be doing so right now for sure.
The more Black, the more death worthy.
Says you.
Bias can also influence how teachers discipline students.
Okay. We might be hedging on a school to prison pipeline. Uh-oh. My
colleagues and I have found that teachers express a desire to discipline a Black middle school student more harshly than a white student for the same repeated infractions.
Really? They told you that? You asked them a question. It's like, if you had to punish one more severely than the other, holds up picture, which one would you punish more severely just on the basis of their appearance? Obviously the Black kid.
Yeah, definitely the Black kid. Yeah.
That's how the teachers were. Yeah, I'm sure that's how that test went. I'm sure that's how that went.
In a recent study.
Which one? Are you going to tell us? Are you going to give us a citation maybe?
Nah, bro.
We're finding that teachers treat Black students as a group, but white students as individuals.
Wait a minute. You mean exactly like you do?
Oh, shit. Thank you, Ham and Beans. What does more Black mean? She's talking darker skin. We're talking colorism here.
Yeah, she's talking colorism.
Yeah.
She's speaking as if she doesn't treat Black people in general as a group, which is hilarious. They're like, hey, this is wrong. They treat Black people as a group, and everybody knows that we're not a monolith. By the way, we experience everything in the exact same capacity. We are all the exact same people, and we all think exactly the same at all times.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay. Thanks for clearing that up.
That's something that I come across on these things so often. People use the word group when they really should be saying demographic.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's saying like, oh, yeah, these teachers treat Black people as a group, as in they assume they all operate the exact same way. Oh, okay. Well, you want to tell us what that study was that proves is that all teachers are racist?
No.
Okay. Aren't you a teacher? Oh, wait, no. Tell me about your son again. Sorry. Oh, I got to hit the button.
If, for example, one Black student misbehaves,
yes, okay,
and then a different Black student misbehaves a few days later,
okay,
the teacher responds to that second Black student as if he had misbehaved twice.
What?
So you mean to tell me that none of these teachers can differentiate any of their students by generally how they look? And if one Black student misbehaves, they just pretend like the same one keeps misbehaving, and the punishments get more severe over time. But they can differentiate between the white students, and they do know that they are different people, so they treat them all on a separate basis.
Yes, that is the implication there, that Black students are a monolith, a hive mind. They are all guilty of each other's actions and associations, whereas white students are all individual people who are evaluated individually.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's ask her, what is her view on white people and privilege?
That's what I'm waiting to have some more information on, because she's talked a lot about what she says other people think about Black people.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know, given her son's own reaction,
mm-hmm,
what she thinks about the white group, as it were.
I'd love to hear it. I'm sure it's a very individualistic. I'm sure she's like, yeah, well, there's very unique situations. All white people are very unique in their own way. You can't really put them all in the same box and say this. On that note, though, they all have universal privilege. They all benefit by this system of things that's going on. Nothing bad ever happens to them. It's just like, oh, okay.
It's as though the sins of one child get piled onto the other.
Huh.
We create categories to make sense of the world, to assert some control and coherence to the stimuli that we're constantly being bombarded with.
Well, that's a lot of words to say. We all try to assess and understand the world around us.
That sounded like a word salad to me.
That did, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
All right, word salad. All right, we are 2 squares away from a bingo. We need equity and plays victim to get the vertical bingo. We're several away from any other bingo. And guys, just for those of you that listened to the last TEDx, I had meant to do a little switch up on the bingo card. I didn't have a chance to today, so it's the same one as before. But I intend by the next one to switch some of the squares around and make a couple of edits, and I'll have a revised bingo card on for the next one. Fingers crossed, pinky swear, cross my heart, hope to die, and if I don't, well, you just have to live with it.
Bastard Beast, I did catch that, by the way.
Stimuli. Well, not stimuli. Stimuli. He's being fancy. Okay. Yeah, word salad. Tell us more.
Categorization and the bias that it seeds allow our brains to make judgments more quickly and efficiently.
Yes, and we all, and it's true. Yeah, we all do these things.
We all, behavior.
Yeah, past experience informs future encounters. So you can call it kind of like, personal wisdom over something. Now, is it always justified? No. Is it always accurate? No. New experiences and new people we come across can revise how we think about certain things or perceive certain things. But we all do it. It is a natural human and animal instinct to look at the world around us, assess what is safe, what is not safe, what has my past experiences told me about X situation versus this situation. Everybody does it. And you call those biases? You're right. They are biases. Everybody has them. I like mint and chocolate chip ice cream. Monkey thinks it's poison from hell or something. Okay, great, whatever.
Yeah, it's a normal human function. Your first encounter with a dog, if it's a bad one, then you think like dogs are bad. Right. That's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, the word bias in and of itself does not connotate someone who is flawed in their thinking.
Right.
It depends on what they are talking about and or how they assess it or what their reasons are for assessing it. And you can't find that out without asking more questions. Just saying this person is biased or even this person is a bigot. I always hate the conflation of the word bigot and racist. Like a bigot means you are intolerant of someone on the basis of their ideas.
Right.
Okay. So if someone comes up to me and says, you know what? I really like hunting down small children and eating them. I'd be like, fuck you. And I'd be a bigot.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't like the fact that that is the reality because they have associated the word with something negative, any type of, situation. So even though they display clearly an obvious bigoted behavior, they don't like to hear the word come out of your mouth when describing them because they're like, no, that's not me.
Yeah.
Like, that's you.
Yeah.
It's absolutely you.
Bias is a neutral term without clarification. Bigot is a neutral term without clarification. You call somebody a bigot, like, why are they a bigot? Well, they don't like pedophiles. Like, oh, okay. Like, what are you going to do?
And we do this by instinctively relying on patterns that seem predictable.
Yes, past experience informing future interactions. That's how bias works. That's how likes and dislikes work. And again, unless or until you come across a situation where your previous notion of something is challenged and you find yourself in a contradiction. Like, well, I thought I hated apple pie, but I just had some and I like it.
Yeah. And I don't think, hopefully we get to this question because this is the most important part of this question is when it comes to these biases and repetitious things that we see that create them. What's the source, ma'am? Can we talk about where the source comes from? Because I'd like to hear that part of the conversation because a lot of people don't like to discuss it or they are very selective about the sources that they pick because there's never really just one when it comes to something like this. There's often a multitude of things where this type of attitude can come from, and the Black community is very guilty of completely ignoring the major source and then focusing on the minute ones. So we'll see. I'm curious what she has to say about that.
I love it. When I had Monkey on before, he kept saying, I'm curious to find out I'm curious. And like, it's exactly the same stuff I say when I watch these things, because it's like, I don't know what they're going to say next. I haven't watched these things ahead of time. It's always an exploration. And I'm like, okay, are we going to get to this? Are we going to explain this? I can't wait to find out. This is the anticipation and the suspense that comes along with TEDx.
There you go.
There you go. That's my selling point. That's what I tell myself to justify why I do this to myself. God, I hope I'm right.
Yet just as the categories we create allow us to make quick decisions,
yes,
they also reinforce bias. So the very things that help us to see the world also can blind us to it.
That's
okay. It's possible. It's possible, but here's the question: are the biases unjustified as pertains to the individual's personal experience? Now, something can come along to contradict a bias, true. But if you are shown over and over and over again that this particular thing or food or experience or territory or whatever signals in you some kind of negative connotation, can you be blamed for possessing such a bias?
Yeah, I actually had a really long conversation with a good friend of mine. Me and him been friends for since like middle school, man. And he took some issue with something that I said in regards to people who were stating that it was around the time we were talking about the black people with guns or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, like, anytime a black person is ever seen in public with a gun, the police use them as target practice. Like that's what they're trained to do. No black person has ever been in public with a weapon ever and not been gunned down. Like that's what people were saying. And he was arguing with me that it was bad for me to say that people who said that were idiots, because I wasn't taking into the account their experience, because their experience may have been to witness that, that turn of events where every person that I have personally ever seen who had a gun in public was shot by the police. That could very well have been their experience. So you can't say that that's just a stupid mindset overall. And I'm like, okay, that's not false. That's not false at all.
Sure.
But that still does not negate the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that is not true. Mm-hmm. Period. Like it just is not true. So regardless of if that's your experience, we can acknowledge the fact that yes, you as an individual have experienced this situation this way. I acknowledge the fact that you have, and I understand why you hold that view. That being said, you are wrong. So
well, yeah, I mean the real test is, it's like, okay, I've been exposed to all these things and this is my viewpoint on it. Okay, I'm going to give you some information that contradicts your belief that this is the rule.
Right.
How do you react to that? And that's really what it comes down to. Is someone willing? I mean, and not like a judgmental thing or necessarily a vindictive thing. If that's literally all they've experienced, I can't say that they're wrong for feeling the way that they do. But if I put evidence in front of them that says your assessment of how the world works is not accurate to reality, the next question is, how do they take that information? Do they have the capacity to imagine the possibility that they could be wrong? That's always the test of the really honest thinking and critically thinking person, is that you can move throughout your entire life and believe something to be true. And if you put something in front of you that says, I think you've been operating under a misapprehension, do you have the capacity to stop, consider what's being put in front of you, and say, I might be wrong? Because if you're willing to just plow on forward regardless of information that might call into question your belief on something, then you're an ideologue. Then you're someone who's just like operating on belief versus fact, and there's not much else to be done. There was I forget, some famous debate in Congress back in the 1800s or something, and somebody said, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm not a historian, I'm an English major, can you entertain the possibility that you could be wrong, sir, is what the guy said to the other guy. Like, can you at least allow for the possibility, that small margin of error for yourself, that you are not absolutely omniscient on this subject? And that is really the test of someone who's willing to self-evaluate and question their own certitude on what they say is right about the world.
Right.
Thank you, Manic, for the dog, cat, fox. Hiya. Hi, Manic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and in that conversation, that was the point that I was able to kind of win the conversation on. And he eventually was like, okay, well, I kind of see what you're saying, because I'm like, I get what you're saying, but up until this point, like up until now, when the conversation started happening and we had this discussion, whatever happened prior, based on what I'm showing now, because the video that I showed was literally a video that went against anybody's narrative who may have had that experience. So up until this point, if they took the time to watch this video, then your point is even more irrelevant, because now they are literally witnessing something that goes against that narrative in full form right here. It's right in front of them. So they can't even say that anymore. If they've actually watched the video, they can't hold, they literally cannot hold that position. Now, if they choose to ignore this and pretend they didn't see it so they can keep holding that narrative, then that's on them.
Yeah, and that's always the thing I run up against when I hear someone say, you should not, and I'm paraphrasing, you should not deny someone's lived experience. You hear that a lot, and it's like, you're right, I cannot inherently deny or reject someone's lived experience, but lived experience is a tiny slice of reality.
Right.
And so, no, I cannot deny your lived experience, but no more should you deny the possibility that your lived experience is not an accurate reflection of reality.
Yeah, because what he kept saying to me was, I'm like, it's not reality. He like, it's their reality. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like, stop it.
Well, this is always the point where you get a lot of contention. It's like, you're right. It is their lived reality. Their lived reality is not every reality. It's not everyone's experience. It's not what we know in the wide scope of studies and statistics and everything else. I mean, if your lived experience is the sky is always red, I live that. I see it every day. It's like, okay, you're colorblind. That doesn't matter. My lived experience is the sky is red. Like, yeah, but, and it's like, okay, I can't call you a liar, right? That's the thing. That's what always comes down to. That's always the ammo used against any argument to the contrary. It's like, you can't call the person a liar for saying, this happened to me, this is how life has treated me, and so on. It's like, I can't tell you you're a liar. Right? I can't call you a liar, can't say you're wrong about your perspective on your own life and experience. But I hate to tell you this, the world does not revolve around you.
Yeah. And he tried to rebut, because I was telling him, like, the reality is this is the reality. He like, no, that's your reality. Their reality is different. I'm like, no, what I'm telling you right now is an absolute, like, it is a irrefutable fact. This isn't my reality. This isn't my experience that I've personally experienced. Like, it's right here in front of you, and everybody can see it. Like, this isn't something that specifically I have dealt with. So he kept trying to frame it like, no, see, you got your reality and you're not willing to say that your reality isn't the one that's real. I'm like, because, like, how do you explain that to a person?
Right. It's a circular kind of thing. If someone is invested in their own interpretation of things to the point where it is a part of who they are and how they identify themselves, anything that might threaten that perception of reality is threatening not only their perspective, but themselves as a person. If you have someone proceeding through life, treating people and assessing things on the basis of a misapprehension, and they've made this part of their makeup, part of their own sense of self, sense of pride or whatever else, and you say, hey, you know what? You know that God you believe in that's telling you to do these things? That doesn't exist. Oh, you can't have that. The world comes apart, right? Especially when you start identifying yourself. And this is why, like, the whole concept of identity these days and identifying yourself with abstracts and not personal stuff, like my color, my gender, my whatever. This is part of my quote unquote identity. Oh, scary stuff. Thank you. This is Kyle. I literally had that same argument with my dad. Oh, I hated arguing with my dad about things. because I was always right. No, the older I get, my dad warned me about this when I was like 12 or something. He said, the older I got, the more right my dad became. Because I didn't want to admit it when I was young. My dad knew more than I did. And I got to give credit to him. The older I get, the more right about some things my dad. Not all things. There's a lot of things my dad doesn't get right. Anyway, we're stalling.
We are.
A little bit.
They render our choices effortless, friction-free, yet they exact a heavy toll.
Uh-huh.
So what can we do?
I am dying to know. We're about just slightly halfway through this, and I'm dying to know.
Yeah.
We are all vulnerable to bias,
Uh-huh.
but we don't act on bias all the time.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I get up in the morning, and I am biased towards making a living, so I go to work. I'm biased towards not having my teeth fall out, so I brush my teeth. And on and on and on. We work on bias every second of our day.
Well, if she means specifically, like, there are some times where there is a situation that arises where our bias could take place, and we opt not to act on that impulse, then maybe she has a point. Okay. But let's see if she elaborates.
Okay.
There are certain conditions that can bring bias alive, and other conditions that can muffle it.
Okay, I'm gonna correct myself slightly. In the context of this presentation, she is talking about racial bias.
Right. She's
talking about the bias between people, not the bias of everyday decision making and everything else. I was being a little bit nitpicky, literal, but that's just, I'm an English major, forgive me. Okay, so I'll correct myself going forward. When she says bias, she's talking about assessing the value or behaviors of people on the basis of at least race, if not general appearance.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Let me give you an example.
Please do.
Many people are familiar with the tech company Nextdoor.
Am I? Nextdoor is your local hub to connect and share with I think I've heard of it, but that's about as close as my familiarity is for that. Do you know what that is?
Well, she said many people, and based on what her definition of many is, she could be like the 3 people I know.
That's true. Okay.
So
tell us that this isn't a plug for a Nextdoor. Are you an investor in Nextdoor by any chance?
So their whole purpose is to create stronger, healthier, safer neighborhoods.
How about just go outside and meet your neighbors? Why do I need a website to do that for me? I mean, you remember neighborhoods before the internet? I do.
Was that a thing?
That was. Oh, yeah. No, I lived in a neighborhood and everybody knew everybody. There was a neighborhood watch. We had occasional little we had like a yearly sort of like neighborhood parade thing where the kids would like dress up and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was a very unifying thing. I knew everybody in my neighborhood. I could at least tell like whose house that was and everything. I didn't need a website for that. I just had to like go outside.
Nah, that's too much work.
I know.
And so they offer this online space where neighbors can gather and share information.
You are totally an investor. You've got to be. You don't plug something like that unless you got some kind of interest.
What a weird thing.
Yeah, I know. Man, TEDx is, at least I'd say about 15% of the time I come across a TEDx, which is just an advertisement for either the individual services or something that they've created.
Yeah.
Yet Nextdoor soon found that they had a problem with racial profiling.
Okay.
In the typical case, people would look outside their window and see a Black man in their otherwise white neighborhood and make the snap judgment that he was up to no good.
Wait a minute. Did we just read a story about this?
I think so.
About a Black woman in her neighborhood looking outside and seeing all these suspicious whites walking around.
Yeah.
If it's safe for her child to go out and play anymore because all these crackers showing up. Yeah. Remember that? We just read a story about that not too long ago.
Yeah, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was a Medium article from Frosted Glass. Yeah, with a lady being very, very upset that her classically Black neighborhood was being invaded by white people.
Yeah.
And she wasn't sure if her 13-year-old was safe to walk down the street anymore.
Yeah. Huh. And that was supposed to be a rational and justified viewpoint.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you, Bacall, Driving 8-Man. It's that app to rat on your neighbors. Like I said, I think no. You know what? No, it wasn't Nextdoor. It was Glassdoor. Glassdoor is I get to talk about my experience working for company X website. It's sort of like a Yelp for companies or businesses.
Right.
I was thinking of Glassdoor. I was like, Nextdoor. I hadn't heard of it. Or if I have, I don't remember it. But okay, Nextdoor.
You know what I bet she won't talk about, Scott?
I
bet she won't talk about what happens to white people who stumble into hoods that they don't live in.
Oh, boy.
Even when there was no evidence of criminal wrongdoing.
Well, sort of like your son assuming that guy on the plane was going to rob the place.
Yeah. I wonder where you got that from.
Yeah, I wonder where you got that.
In many ways, how we behave online is a reflection of how we behave in the world.
Not really.
Not really.
It depends on who you are, because I tell you what, and this is a truism, anonymity provides a lot of artificial bravery.
Oh, for sure.
I'll tell you that for sure. And the internet tough guy syndrome, that has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah.
Now, I'll admit, having anonymity online it will show someone's unfiltered self more often than not, right? In the absence of social constraints or considerations of other people's feelings, when you're just talking to words on the screen, you can say things that you truly do believe in a way that you would not in real life. So in that sense, I agree with her.
And it doesn't even just work in the way that she's implying it. It can work the other way around too.
Sure.
Like, you can look like a fucking saint online.
Yes.
You know, a paragon of good behavior and be an actual shitbag in real life. So
exactly, it can go either way. But I mean, that's also reflective of like the unfiltered self. Right. But you can also project a completely false face in order to gain affirmation, attention, appreciation, as we've seen many a time from, say, male feminists, as an example. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. She'd have been right if she inverted that phrase. Yeah, well, there's a lot of things here where it's like, okay, well, let's just switch the script a little bit, and you tell me, does that sound reasonable to you, or does that sound bad? The things coming out of your mouth versus the things coming out of someone else's mouth who just happens to have a different melanin count than you do. What do you say then?
But what we don't want to do is to create an easy-to-use system that can amplify bias and deepen racial disparities.
Well, then we better get rid of Twitter right now, then.
Unless, say it with me, guys, unless it's against white people.
Rather than dismantling them. So the co-founder of Nextdoor reached out to me and
why? Why? Are you an investor? Are you a sponsor? Are you their go-to psychologist?
To others to try to figure out what to do. And they realized that to curb racial profiling on the platform, they were going to have to add friction. That is, they were going to have to slow people down.
What?
We know where this is going.
Well, I have no idea what the platform does. If you want to remove racial bias, I don't know how the platform works, but why don't you just take that out of the considerations of things?
No, I think I know where this is going. Let's continue.
So Nextdoor had a choice to make, and against every impulse, they decided to add friction.
So were you a consultant? So wait. Nextdoor called on you as a consultant to help them reduce racial bias on their platform.
And against every impulse, not including the impulse that compelled them to call you in the first place, they decided to do what you suggested.
Right. Okay. I just want to make sure half of the TEDx stuff is stopping, thinking about what they've said and thinking, okay, just want to make sure I understand before we proceed, because when you talk real fast, it can all go over your head real quick.
I do love that against any impulse statement, though. Like, against any impulse, like they fought with me so hard, even though they called and requested my help.
Yeah. Even though what I was telling them was counterintuitive to their business strategy, obviously they were so racist they had to listen to me.
Yeah.
And they did this by adding a simple checklist. There were 3 items on it.
White, black, other. Oh, a checklist. That's a list. Oh boy, a list. I'm circling that on the bingo card. A list. I almost forgot. Okay, moving on.
First, they asked users to pause and think, what was this person doing that made him suspicious?
So wait, Nextdoor is somebody else said it there. So is Nextdoor like an online neighborhood watch platform?
It sounds like an online snitching neighborhood watch platform.
Okay.
Wait a minute. In their reporting system on there, which I'm assuming they have, what the person was doing was not a question?
It wasn't already a question. Like, can you describe the nature of the activity? I mean, first off, okay, they didn't have that to begin with, and second off, why the fuck would you go to Nextdoor, not call 911 if you saw something suspicious enough to report it as a problem?
Oh God!
What the? Okay.
The category black man is not grounds for suspicion.
Tell that to your son.
Wait a minute. Was it before on
Sorry, what?
I said, was it before on the website? Like when you went in and they said, what was the nature of the crime that you witnessed? Could you check black dude?
Yeah, exactly. Was that on the drop down menu? It's like, give us an overall summary of the situation.
Yes.
Let's see. A noise complaint, yelling, gunshot, black guy.
Or wait, they would have probably been more professional. Unauthorized Negro presence. There you go.
Thank you, Pacala Driving 8-Man. When they say suspicious, they don't mean criminal. This is used by neighborhood Terrans and housing authority, housing HOA. I know what HOA means, but my brain's off because of Pepper Jack. They use it to spy and gossip. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess if something doesn't rise to the level of calling the cops, then I guess you go to Nextdoor or you just your neighborhood. I mean, if Nextdoor is sort of like the low resistance version of let's just have a neighborhood watch network and use this app. Okay, I guess I can see that, but suspicious. Oh, sorry, homeowners association. Sorry, I know. I'm full of booze right now, guys.
They needed to play. Look, COVID's going on. They can't do it in person. They can't, sit in each other's kitchen and talk shit about the new black people on the street. So now they need a website to do it.
Oh,
that's all.
So what isn't by doing this next? We're going to drive off all of its racist customers.
I guess so.
Because I mean, they didn't think about this before apparently until she came along.
Second, they asked users to describe the person's physical features.
Hold on.
Why wouldn't they?
So they can. So none of these features were in place before. They added all this stuff now.
Again, not knowing what Nextdoor's original purpose was, I'm assuming now it's some kind of neighborhood watch site. But okay, how would you describe the problem or the suspicion to someone else when you say, I saw someone suspicious in the neighborhood yesterday? What is the immediate first question that any police officer or neighbor is going to ask?
Right.
What did they look like? Like, what is what did you look like inherently a racial bias test?
Well, and here's the thing too, because we're talking about bias, and I'm assuming she's expecting the people who are listening to this not to think about this. They implemented these setups, right, to try to curb what they appear to be racial bias. But they set this up, and they set it up for a reason. So I can only assume that, let's just say I did see somebody, and I'm white, and I said, they are out here, they look suspicious, they were going through the trash or some weird thing like that in somebody's backyard, and I put that they were black. How biased is your system now that I've stated that they are black? How often are you going to just dismiss what I said because I said they were black?
And describing someone accurately per reality is not an inherent racial bias. It's describing reality.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all back to lived experience versus like evidence to the contrary kind of thing. It's like, just because I say someone is black, I'm not saying that I'm, racist. I'm saying that person is black.
Mm-hmm.
That person is white, or I thought that person was Hispanic. it's facts. It's not bias. It's observation.
And I think it's clear that they built the system for this reason. I think specifically they built it for this reason. So whenever they get a complaint about somebody who's saying a black person did something, they can be like, well, we can pretty much say that they probably didn't do anything wrong if they're black.
Thank you, Ham and Beans. Notice she has only implicated males as being suspicious in this whole presentation. Pretty sexist to me. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. If that's an argument towards make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason, she's using hypotheticals, and I can't necessarily fault her for that. If she's just, we'll see. We're only halfway through this, guys. We gotta push through.
Not simply their race and gender.
What difference would that make? Wait. I gotta back up. I missed something here. What?
The category black man is not grounds for suspicion.
By itself, no.
Second, they ask users to describe the person's physical features, not simply their race and gender.
Well, are they tall? Are they short? Do they have blonde hair? Do they have long hair, short hair, tattoos? I mean, if there's somebody suspicious going on, doing whatever in your neighborhood, and you're for whatever reason, you're not calling the cops on this, but you're going to Nextdoor for some reason, and you want your neighbors to be on the lookout for someone that might not belong. I saw a white man. And? What?
So
what?
Basically, I think she's claiming on the low here. She might not be saying it out loud, but apparently their site was completely incompetent and totally inefficient until she stepped in and made it and gave it common sense measures to fucking identify people.
That could be true, except she's saying that to have more space to give more identifiers to someone is somehow wrong. That it should be just gender and race.
Well, no, because she's listing off all the things that they added based on her input.
Did I miss?
I think it's the other way around.
Did I mishear? Okay, let me. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to back up again because I don't know. I didn't have anything on my stomach this morning. I didn't have any breakfast, so maybe the pepper jack's just hitting my brain.
Doing that made him suspicious.
Uh-huh.
The category black man is not grounds for suspicion.
Right.
Second, they ask users to describe the person's physical features, not simply their race and gender.
So they asked them because you told them to, or they did prior to your... Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
What they had before was just sex and gender, but now they asked for features.
Okay, I thought she was saying that before she showed up, they asked for these other details.
No.
Okay.
It's the other way around.
Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. When there's something weird in the neighborhood, who are you going to call? That depends. Are they black?
Third, they realized that a lot of people didn't seem to know what racial profiling was, nor that they were engaging in it.
What?
Okay.
So you made sure to enlighten them that every time somebody says that a black person did something, that it's automatically racial profiling.
Yeah, that there always should be some doubt as to the accuracy or truth of something because someone described another individual as black.
Yep. This is so fucking transparent. Oh my God.
So if someone says that person was fill in blank with not white, well, you're going to have to think to a certain extent they're probably being racist.
Yep.
Okay.
So Nextdoor provided them with a definition and told them that it was strictly prohibited.
What is strictly prohibited?
Racial bias.
But if, okay. I don't think I need to say it at this point, but then, okay.
Most of you have seen those signs in airports and in metro stations. If you see something, say something.
Yes. Okay. Except that now if I see something, I'm not supposed to say certain things on the chance that I'm actually racist.
Yeah. If you see something, say something, unless that what you see is being done by a black person. Then you keep your mouth shut, you racist piece of shit.
Nextdoor tried modifying this. If you see something suspicious, say something specific.
Yeah, because, prior to this, if I was in a train station and I saw a backpack, a red backpack with blue stripes on it, just sitting next to a gas main, unattended, I'd call the cops and say, I saw a thing that might be holding a bad thing. I mean, that's how I would have operated prior to Nextdoor's revelation, thanks to our speaker. If I saw something suspicious, I'd only be very general about it. I wouldn't try to notify someone or try to solve the problem if there was a problem. No, I sort of give the most general terms and let them try to Sherlock Holmes their way out of it. That's how I did before. Now Nextdoor has enlightened me. Our speaker has enlightened me. If I see something suspicious, I call the cops and I give them a detailed description of what's going on. Thank you. I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah, apparently nobody has until she came along.
And using this strategy, by simply slowing people down, Nextdoor was able to curb racial profiling by 75%.
How did you measure that? If someone was accurately reporting something and just happened to mention the race of the individual, whatever it was, in describing what was going on, how did you know it was racial bias and not I am reporting what I am seeing? I would love to know.
I'll tell you how. They classified every comment of them mentioning the fact that there was a black person as racial profiling, set it up to where they denied any claims from anybody saying that for the most part, unless they gave very specific detailed information of a very specific activity that they were doing that could very specifically be labeled as a crime. And there you go. They were like, we threw away everything else. We left only these things available. If they said they were black in some way, we assumed that they were racist and they were profiling, and that's how we got the numbers down.
Okay, so prior to her showing up, the bar for what constitutes a report was, I'll just be hypothetical, 3 elements. After she shows up, what constitutes a report is 12 elements. And because people started using the form they were put in front of them, now racial bias or profiling has been reduced because we changed how we do our reporting system. Whereas if you'd asked somebody prior for more details, more likely than not, they would have given them to you if that was what the form required. But it's like the form says, what are the details? What was the person's gender? What was the person's race? What was their height? And here's a little text box for what you observed. And now it's like we got 17 check marks and everything else. And so because people are using the form in more detail than they did the previous one, now racial profiling has been reduced.
Yep.
Interesting way. I mean, and again, I have no other way of assessing what she's just said, given what she's told us before. So, yay.
It's fairly obvious to me. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, but yeah. It sounds about right. That sounds about
when I watch these things, oftentimes I just say, okay, I'm going to operate within the world that they are weaving together with what they're saying. That's it. I have nothing else to go on unless they tell me elsewise.
Now, people often will say to me, you can't add friction, in every situation, in every context, and especially for people who make split-second decisions all the time.
Did she ever define what friction is? It's just like you have to ask for more information. Is that what friction is?
That's what it seems like she's saying it is, but
okay. So she's saying like we need to avoid making snap judgments. Okay, except that what led us to make the more explicit description of what's going on was a snap judgment of some kind.
Yes, and the new system we literally put in was completely designed based on snap judgments to deny white people the.
Right. So if we require these fields be filled out before you can actually get that submit button to go from gray to blue, then we're slowing down your thought process and making you second guess, did I actually see something suspicious?
Yeah.
Okay.
But how do I know that lady wasn't asking for it?
Oh.
Let me think about this. That is a black dude. He could have just propositioned her and she's screaming for joy. Yeah, okay.
But it turns out we can add friction to more situations than we think.
Oh, thank God. I love adding frictions to situations. I like making things more uncomfortable. It's my favorite thing.
Working with the Oakland Police Department in
Oakland, I'm just going to, Oakland Police Department. Okay.
California,
Yeah.
I and a number of my colleagues were able to help the department to reduce the number of stops they made of people who were not committing any serious crimes.
I'm not bragging or anything, but by the way, how do you know if someone's committing a serious crime until you talk to them? And usually, you know, how do you assess that? If you're responding to a call, if somebody calls the police and says, "I see something suspicious," do the police just say, "You're probably lying"?
Yeah.
Or what was the person's race? Because if you're going to say black, I'm not going to give it that much priority now.
Yeah, we're probably not going to look into it. They're probably doing nothing wrong.
I need more information. How did you change their minds on what to assess as stop-worthy versus not stop-worthy? Just saying it doesn't tell me anything. Maybe you're absolutely right. Maybe it was like they were stopping people for, I don't know, spitting on the street. Like when there's plenty of other things they could be doing. Like, well, maybe, okay, but you have to tell us what exactly did you change?
Right.
That's not enough information.
And we did this by pushing officers to ask themselves a question before each and every stop they made.
Okay, I'm dying to know.
Is this stop intelligence-led? Yes or no?
What?
Is this stop intelligence-led?
Intelligence-led.
Yeah.
Please tell me you're going to give us more information on what intelligence-led is.
In other words,
yes.
Do I have prior information to tie this particular person to a specific crime?
You don't have to stop someone. You can see a complete stranger on the street doing something suspicious and stop them and ask them what's up.
So if you see a person actively committing a crime, you have to stop and think, can I tie this person to any other crimes I've seen or heard of lately? No? I'll just leave them alone. Like, are you fucking retarded?
That doesn't make any sense. That literally doesn't make any sense. Intelligence-based. Okay, probable cause, reasonable suspicion. These are standards set in law for when police officers engage with citizens for whatever reason. And whether or not they were justified in engaging is something for the courts, usually afterwards. But in the moment, if a police officer sees something suspicious, whether they recognize the person or not, whether or not they can tell for sure something bad is going on, if they just have a reasonable suspicion to say, I wonder what that person's up to, there's nothing wrong with them stopping and saying, hey, what's going on? That's it. And then you don't have to know who they are ahead of time. You don't have to be able to associate what they're doing with anything. It could be just good police work where you're going through your neighborhood, you're going through your beat, and you see something that's a little off. If you see something, say something, as in see something, look into it. What the hell is she talking about?
Well, if she would have said that if police took the time to actually consider the scenario, like what it is that they are witnessing and apply it to like, okay, well, and what situation would this, would this be considered justified or something like that? Or think about like, maybe there's something beyond this just being some type of criminal activity. And even if they have to still go investigate just to make sure, that would be relatively reasonable.
Sure.
But what she's saying is just ridiculous because we're talking about witnessing somebody committing a crime, even if it's a very small one.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why this even plays a factor. Why you need to stop and think about anything.
If she's going to argue for, and I've heard this in different restorative justice things before, if she's going to argue for like, we should decriminalize the most ridiculous things like, I don't know, minor marijuana possession. You see somebody with just smoking a joint. That shouldn't be a sudden stop, arrestable offense, etc. I mean, like, maybe. But I'm not going to fault a police officer for stopping someone to ask a question. Not arresting them, not shooting them or something, but you're talking about stops. Stops are just encounters.
Yeah.
At their very basic level. Yeah. I mean, at worst, you are inconveniencing someone for a few minutes. At worst. And if a police officer is just making sure that everything's okay, that there's nothing goofy going on, why is that bad? And what does that inherently have to do with bias? You mean bias towards something that sets off their radar as a police officer? You know what? More often than not, I'll give the police officer the benefit of the doubt that their training says, I've been patrolling this territory for the last 3 years. that person's doing something I've never seen before. I wonder what's going on. It's like, but I mean, I've never seen them before. Can I associate with what they're doing with any particular crime? Not at present, but that's why I'm going to go investigate. Is she expecting police officers to be clairvoyants or something?
By adding that question to the form officers complete during a stop.
The form officer during a stop. So they've already stopped somebody. They've already taken the action, and now they're completing a form after the fact. I thought the idea was to reduce the number of stops.
Right.
Or is it that if we give them extra paperwork they have to do, maybe that'll disincentivize them from making stops in the first place? I have to assume that's your logic.
Maybe.
That is the friction. It's like, well, if we make them have to fill out a form, then maybe they won't make as many stops. Okay.
They slow down, they pause, they think, why am I considering pulling this person over?
Yeah, and imagine how many people doing something terrible get away when a cop is like, I better step on eggshells whether or not my instincts are correct. In order to fill out a form, paperwork will be the death of us all. Yeah.
In 2017, before we added that intelligence-led question to the form, officers made about 32,000 stops across the city.
Stops. Okay, stops.
In that next year, with the addition of this question, that fell to 19,000 stops. African American stops alone fell by 43%.
And what were the crime statistics that year?
I was just about to say, if you put a mental barrier in front of cops, like, I don't want to have to fill out another one of those stupid forms before making a stop. Okay, the stops reduced. Was there a reduction in the crime rate?
That's what I want to know. But look, here's what I'll tell you. If there was, she would mention it. She would absolutely
you're right.
mention it.
You're right.
But if there isn't,
yeah,
she ain't gonna say shit.
Right.
So let's find out.
Yeah, if there was a reduction in the crime rate, you would say so.
Oh yeah, she would absolutely mention it. So here we go.
Okay. And stopping fewer Black people did not make the city any more dangerous.
How so?
Yeah.
Wait, it didn't make it any more dangerous? Didn't you say, shouldn't it be like less?
It should have made it less dangerous. Absolutely.
What?
In fact, the crime rate continued to fall and the city became safer for everybody. So
do I take her at her word here?
We have to. We've been taking her at her word this whole time.
Okay, so crime is increased by police making stops. When police make fewer stops, crime drops.
Yes.
Is that because fewer crimes are detected with the reduction of stops?
That's very possible.
Is it a see no evil, hear no evil kind of situation?
That is very possible. Oh, I mean, at the very least, it's absolutely a part of it. I don't think we can call it the primary cause, but that has to be a part of the equation.
And this is the thing that's happening right now with the whole argument of we need to abolish the police. It's like, well, yeah, if you have less policing, if you have fewer people out there watching for, responding to, or detecting crimes, yeah, your crime rate's going to drop
for sure
significantly because no one will be reporting anything, or those things that do get reported won't be registered or solved.
Yeah, a good majority of the crime that happens, nobody would know about, and people would just be getting away with it. So, yeah.
So does our lab researcher consider that possibility in her equation?
No, there's no possibility of that.
I mean, maybe she's right, and the two things have nothing to do with each other. Like Oakland's just becoming a gradually safer place over time as people wise up or whatever, change their whatever. Maybe that's right, but I don't know. I can't tell from that. Her very success story could be the cause of her argument in its support.
Right.
As there's sirens going on in the background of where I live.
Yeah.
For everybody. So one solution can come from reducing the number of unnecessary stops.
That's not a solution. Okay, as the sirens keep going. Thank you, Kingslayer Damocles. It's not reasonable suspicion. It's reasonable articulable suspicion. Also, when you say stop, is it consensual conversation or detainment? Kingslayer, you're correct. I mean, I took several criminal justice classes in college, and yes, a reasonable, articulable suspicion. You have to be able to, but it's usually after the fact, obviously, you have to be able to state, here are the specific reasons why my suspicion was raised. You can't just say, I had a hunch. Sometimes you can, but you have to be able to at least give the details of what led you to that hunch. And then that has to be assessed after the fact if there's any kind of challenge to it. That is true. So my apologies there. And also, when can you say stop is a consensual conversation retainment? Well, she didn't distinguish between a stop that's just sort of like a contact with an individual, or if they stop the person and detain them, and the word suddenly escapes me. Either way, leading up to an arrest. She didn't qualify any of that, so we don't know. And again, preventing or discouraging police officers from investigating whatever, yeah, that's going to lead to a reduction in the crime rate because they would have detected something conceivably.
Right.
So,
FYI too, Scribe. My wife was like, she was hovering at the door for a while, so she's like, "When are you gonna be done?"
Okay. I'll make less stops. We've only got like 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Another can come from improving the quality of the stops officers do make.
How do you do that?
And technology can help us here.
Okay.
We all know about George Floyd's death
Yes.
because those who tried to come to his aid held cell phone cameras to record that horrific, fatal encounter with.
Well, they held their cell phone cameras and didn't actually come to his aid, but then he had like 7 cops surrounding him. So what were you going to do?
Yeah. Nobody came to it. They recorded his death.
Yeah, you would presume the police there would have been coming to his aid, but they were the ones there standing around or letting the guy kill the guy.
Right.
So, I mean, insofar as they were able to record the event and make sure that the guilty people are held accountable, that's about as much aid as you could provide when you got a bunch of cops standing around who are letting a guy be murdered. So, okay. Credit where credit's due on that statement.
With the police. But we have all sorts of technology that we're not putting to good use.
Like?
Police departments across the country are now required to wear body-worn cameras.
Yes.
So we have recordings of not only the most extreme and horrific encounters, but of everyday interactions.
Yes.
With an interdisciplinary team at Stanford.
Stanford!
Wah, wah, wah.
Is Stanford informing the cops in Oakland? I assume they are.
Interdisciplinary.
So the English department and the art department.
We've begun to use machine learning techniques to analyze large numbers of encounters.
Oh yeah, AI will save us all. It's true.
This is to better understand what happens.
Pause. Does she mean a bias machine?
No. It's not a bias machine because it's being programmed by Stanford interdisciplinary people at Nextdoor. There's no bias.
We created a machine that runs completely on algorithms and bias.
I can't tell you how many TEDx's I've done where somebody's brought up the fact it's like, this program is created by men, white men. And so the programming itself is biased. I've heard that over and over again. But then when they make a program, it's pure.
Oh, yeah.
There's no bias. There's no chance for error or for assumption.
Yep.
Ever. No. When they're on the right side of history, so's their AI.
In routine traffic stops.
Uh-huh.
What we found was...
Okay, I'll tell you this. I'm not a police officer. I've known police officers as police officers in my family. There is no such thing as a routine traffic stop. Every traffic stop could turn into something disastrous. You have to approach each one as its own thing. Just saying. Okay, and if there are police officers or people involved in police in the chat who know otherwise, willing to hear it. But I've known too many cops when somebody says the phrase routine traffic stop, they go,
that even when police officers are behaving professionally, they speak to Black drivers less respectfully than white drivers.
How do you assess that? What does that mean? Less respectfully?
I'm not sure.
Do they walk up and do like an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like, what's up, my brother?
I don't know. Like she would have to give some examples because I'm curious as to what she means by that.
Yeah, how do you assess a less respectful interaction versus a respectful interaction?
I mean, I'm sure you can, like, if
Sure.
you hear it, but like, we gotta like give us something to work with here.
In fact, from the words officers use alone, we could predict whether they were talking to a black driver or a white driver.
Really?
Huh.
What? Okay, so
wait, hold on.
Yeah.
How can you predict that? Could it possibly be based on some kind of bias?
Well, here's my question. So if she knows that, who knows if she will, but there must be some keywords or phrases that are directed towards black people versus white people. And I'm willing to hear it. I'm willing to hear it. If somebody walks up and says X, then it's like, they usually only say that if they're looking at a black. Okay, what are you going to tell us? Please tell us. I would love to know. And I'm not being facetious. I'd love to know.
The problem is that the vast majority of the footage from these cameras is not used by police departments to understand what's going on the street or to train officers.
You mean it's not being used to reach the conclusions you want them to? I mean, if you're not going to give us more details, I can only assume that's what you mean.
And that's a shame.
Yeah.
How does a routine stop?
There's no such thing as a routine stop. Maybe I'm speaking too fervently on behalf of police officers, but my father was a cop. He had a lot of stories, and whenever he heard the term routine anything, he says, there's no such thing as a routine anything as a police officer. There isn't.
Turn into a deadly encounter. How?
Oh, then it's not routine, is it? Sorry. I'm showing my bias.
How did this happen in George Floyd's case?
Like what?
How did it happen in others? When my eldest son was 16 years old, he discovered that when white people look at him, they feel fear.
How?
How did you discover that?
Is he an empath? Is he psychic? How did
you read minds?
So your 5-year-old sees a black guy on the plane and wonders if he's going to rob the place or something. And then your 16-year-old knows what white people think or feel just by looking at him.
Yep.
How? I mean, if there is an answer to that question, how? I am dying to know.
Please tell us. Please do.
Elevators are the worst, he said. When those doors close, people are trapped in this tiny space with someone they have been taught to associate with danger.
That sounds like a you problem.
Here's the thing. In my experience, and we've actually talked about this, and there was this one building that I worked in, and there was this lady who a lot of black people in the building thought was racist, because every time she goes in and somebody comes in, she'll tuck herself into the corner and she'll grab her purse. And you know, a lot of black people were talking about it, like, yeah, that's a racist bitch, man. She does that shit. And then this white dude walked up and you're like, you talking about what's her face? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, she does that to me too. And they're like, really? It's like, yeah, she apparently literally any human being that walks in there, she tucks herself in the corner and holds her purse. Like, to everybody. She does it to every single person. It was like, I just talked to what's her face the other day. She said the exact same thing. Like, yeah, she's just weird like that. She's a skittish lady. And I'm just like, well, there you go. Racism defeated. And no, but the one dude was just like, oh no, I still think she's racist though. Like, I still think she does it, because I'm like, but you were literally just provided with information to say otherwise.
Right.
But this is once again one of those things where it's like, this one thing happened to me in this one situation, so now I have come up with a definitive explanation for it, and this could only be it. There is no other possibility in existence. This
right. And to the contrary of that, she's talking about police officers who have to go into every situation with an absolute absence of details and knowledge half the time. Right. Even if they get information that leads them to a place, the reasonable police officer at least allows for the possibility that the report was overblown, or that they don't have, even with a report, they don't have all the information. They have to show up and assess it one individually after the other. The police officers who start making assumptions or start making conclusions without information on the first part either get themselves killed or end up killing somebody that shouldn't be, oftentimes in the most extreme situations. Okay. So she's talking about making all these generalizations. Well, cops have to make certain generalizations, but they have to allow for the possibility that they're wrong and take information in as it comes and assess it as they go. They can't know ahead of time. Her son has no idea what people are thinking in an elevator. No idea. And the fact that if she's correct and her son gets into an elevator and thinks everybody around them is scared of them, well, that sounds like a you problem, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That sounds like you projecting a notion onto someone because they are a particular race. Tell me about bias again.
Yeah. Your son's talking about his biases right now, ma'am. The thing that you were actively saying we should dismantle.
Yeah, your eldest son is making assumptions about people on an elevator, and your youngest son is making assumptions about people on a plane in the worst possible interpretations of those people on the basis of race. Everybody in the elevator is a racist. That guy over there is a criminal. And you know what the common denominator in both those situations is? Mom.
Yep.
My son senses their discomfort.
Wait, he's an empath? Is he a betazoid from Beta Z? Because I watch Star Trek and I know how those guys work.
And he smiles to put them at ease.
Oh, because he assumes that they're scared of him. Okay.
To calm their fear.
Meanwhile, they're sitting there like, what the fuck is this weirdo?
or they're looking at, he's so happy he's going to kill me. He's so excited.
When he speaks, their bodies relax.
What?
They breathe easier.
Because they know he's articulate? What? Oh, he's not an actual animal. He knows language. What?
This one speaks English. He must be okay.
Maybe he has a really soothing voice. I don't... What?
They take pleasure in his cadence, his diction.
What? Are you calling your son articulate? Oh my God. They take pleasure in his cadence and diction. I think I heard Joe Biden compliment Obama like that at one point.
His word choice.
His vocabulary. So your son has a high vocabulary and is very good at expressing himself. And this sets him apart from the black people they would assume he would be on the basis of sight alone.
Now, where would a person get that notion from?
He sounds like one of them.
A human being? What?
Yeah.
Sounds like one of them. Oh, well, your son is very good at pretending? What?
I used to think that my son was a natural extrovert like his father.
No, but
your father was a criminal, remember?
Yeah, exactly. Your father was a plane jacker.
He was a fucking criminal.
But I realized at that moment in that conversation that his smile was not a sign that he wanted to connect with would-be strangers.
It was a sign of fear. Right?
It was a talisman he used to protect himself.
A talisman? His smile was a talisman. Boy, you know, that's actually not a bad line. I use that in a story sometime. His smile was a talisman. Ooh, that's actually pretty good.
A survival skill he had honed over thousands of elevator rides.
Good God. I mean, is he the elevator operator? I mean,
and every time he's ever been in an elevator, he's been like trapped with some skittish white person every single time. Never a person of the same race.
I am 41 years old, which shocks me the hell to even say that. But I'm 41 years old. I don't know that I've been in. I'd be surprised if I could honestly say that I've been in over 100 elevator rides in my entire life.
Right.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, if I... Okay, you know what? I take it back. I worked at an office. It was a 3-level thing, and I had to take the elevator. Well, I didn't have to, but I took the elevator up to the 2nd floor and then down again. So twice a day. Okay, you know what? I probably have had hundreds of elevator rides. Most of them I was by myself and didn't mean anything to anything. But thousands of elevator... Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, like I say, every single one, he had to smile to allay everyone's fears that he was a criminal or something.
Yeah, give me 1 second, Scribe. I'm gonna run and tell Squishy we're wrapping up.
Okay, I'll look at the chat real quick while you're done. Assassin the Grey, Scribe Light's sort of son of a sociopath, or just like a functional paranoid, I guess. Jeanette Hellis, is this woman an author? I mean, supposedly she's a psychologist or a professor of some kind at Stanford, so I'll assume she's authored some papers and or books by now. I don't know anything about her otherwise. Psychologist. Parody Bear, that talisman talk made me think of the movie Crash. The Mexican dude gave his kid something and said it made her bulletproof. Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about the other movie called Crash, which is completely different. The first movie called Crash that I was exposed to had nothing to do with the one you're talking about. Very different movie. Let's see. Keyverdam, Scribelight, HOA is a homeowner association. Yes, I know. I was corrected earlier. Okay. We'll try to power through the rest of the Satsu. Sorry.
Okay, I'm back. She's like, hurry up.
Okay.
He was learning to accommodate the tension that his skin color generated.
He was learning to accommodate the tension he believed other people were creating about his skin color.
Yeah, that you taught him.
Yeah, I mean, if you had some evidence or some incident of your son's experience that said this is why he does this, and it happened enough times that he did it all the time, you'd be telling us.
Mm-hmm.
And that put his own life at risk.
What?
We know that the brain is wired for bias.
Yes, you're right. It is. Experience, knowledge, wisdom, application to future events. You're right.
And one way to interrupt that bias is to pause and to reflect on the evidence of our assumptions.
And let crime rates go up without knowing it. Got it.
So we need to ask ourselves, what assumptions do we bring when we step onto an elevator?
Did you ask your son that when he explained that to you?
Yeah, what assumptions was he making?
Did you ask your son about his biases and why he thought that way? I don't think you did you?
Yeah, what biases did he bring to the people in the elevator who he's never spoken to before? He does not know. He cannot read their minds, but he's assuming they think he is a threat.
Yeah.
Because who told him that his skin color is a threat to people who aren't black? Who told him that, I wonder? Who engendered that notion into his mind, I wonder?
Or an airplane.
Yeah.
How do we make ourselves aware of our own unconscious bias?
How about you listen back to your own presentation and imagine for a moment that someone white is saying the exact same things, but reverse black with white in the dialogue.
Yeah.
Try doing that.
You do it by just pretending that you don't have them and everybody else does. There you go.
Who do those assumptions keep safe?
I don't know. You tell me. You're making them yourself, except in the reverse.
Who do they put at risk?
If your son is operating in a world where he thinks everybody who's white is out to get him because they think he's a threat, I don't know. You tell me.
Until we ask these questions and insist that our schools and our courts and our police departments and every institution do the same.
You mean like the Civil Rights Act of 1964? The federal, okay.
We will continue to allow bias to blind us. And if we do, none of us are truly safe.
Which is the goal.
Okay, guys, that is the end of the video. Let's go over the bingo card real quick because we got to get Satsu out of here because Squishy needs some attention. So self-vilification or wretchedness. I mean, no, she didn't make herself out to be. She wasn't like apologizing, like somebody who's apologizing for being white or something like that. I didn't hear anything where she was doing that to herself. I don't think I circled that one. Takes credit / blame for something done or experienced by others in their demographic. Credit. I can't recall that she did anything quite like that. Can you?
You said takes credit, or what was the other one?
Or blame for something done or experienced by others in their demographic. So like if a white person says, I I am a recipient of slaveholders of blah, blah, blah. I'm taking blame for something done by others in my demographic, etc.
No, I didn't hear any of that.
Yeah. Equity, I don't think she ever said the word.
No, I didn't hear equity.
Microaggressions, unconscious bias. She was talking about unconscious bias this whole time.
Yeah.
She may not have used the word unconscious, I can't recall, but she was talking about our ingrained bias. I'm circling that one. Gratuitous pausing for effect. Again, that's really tough to tell without an audience. And the editing in this was so weird because obviously they cut a lot of stuff out and we wove it together. That
oh, hold on. Functional says she took credit without evidence of the reduced crime rates.
But that wasn't from some experience by others in their demographic. She was saying that her actions or her advice led to it. So she wasn't taking credit. She wasn't associating herself in either blame or achievement with people that she doesn't know simply because they were also looking like her.
Right, yeah.
So that, and again, the bingo card is sacred, guys. I'm going to stand by this. Patriarchy, no. I mean, she mentioned males a lot, but she wasn't making a power argument between males and females. School to prison pipeline. She brought up schools. She didn't make that connection, though, that treatment in schools leads to crime or imprisonment. I mean, if I was being really generous, maybe you could say, but no, not really. Toxic, she never said the word. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase.
Yeah, the intelligence-based thing, I think was I heard that.
Okay, all right. I will defer to our esteemed guest here. Feminism, never heard anything on that. Marginalization. She never used the words that I recall.
No.
Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Well, her son certainly did in the elevator.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't have cause to think that anything. First off, he couldn't possibly know what they're feeling or thinking just because he's standing there. But then to assume that they're thinking or feeling something because of what he looks like was his. I mean, it was by extension a story she was telling, but she was using that as an example in her argument. So I'm going to circle that one.
Right.
Wage gap never came up. Speaker should not be in current occupation or position. This is always a tough one with someone who's operating as an ideologue in their occupation to begin with, and the entire purpose of their occupation is to promote that ideology. So, literally speaking, she's perfectly placed to do the job that she has.
Yep.
And so that's a tough one. If she was saying, like, I'm an elementary school teacher, and I'd be like, oh. But if she's a psychiatrist or psychologist working for Stanford, she's exactly where she should be. Benevolent condescension. Yeah, I mean, she was saying that all white people are this and all black people are this, or these people are disadvantaged inherently and have to smile more because obviously white people are going to think that they're villains. Yeah. I'm circling that one. Systemic institutional. She talked about the criminal justice system and how it is flawed. And we need to change it, and that's what her whole point was. So I'm going to circle that one. Plays victim. Yes. I mean, I guess by extension, just because, because of what people think based on what she looks like. Cultural appropriation, never brought it up. White supremacy privilege, never said the words. In fact, she only mentioned like white a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you could say by extension, she is saying that that's what's ruling the day, and therefore that's why police operate this way, etc. But I'm going to be a little stringent there and say she didn't actually bring up the words. So, guys, we are just a square or two off from a bingo in this one. We got a lot of circles on this one, but not a full court press, as it were. So let me display the bingo card as I have it for the moment. And then if you guys have arguments to the contrary, of course, if you have any corrections or anything you'd like to give out, I'll give the next couple of minutes, but then we got to get Satsu out of here.
Yeah.
Mr. Reed, that elevator story anecdote that probably didn't happen. We already circled that one. Got that one done. She should be fired, says Sarah Jim. All cops think alike. Again, her position, from where she's working at, she is perfectly placed for what she's doing. That's a tough one for me. It's not like somebody who's like in an elementary school thing telling kids they need to become communists. That would be, that's an extreme example at all. I have actually seen those before. Let's see, functional. She took credit without evidence of the reduced crime rates. Again, she took credit, but that's not dealing with the demographic. She wasn't associating herself with a demographic or an action by someone or some group or some whatever. She was talking about an overall citywide reduction of something. And that would be to the credit of the police following her advice. And I don't think she associates herself with the police. Pretty sure. Purple Pill Perspective. Thank you, Satsu, for being on this. I'm glad he got on the show so fast after talking about it last night. Well, at Lords of the Night, we are nothing if not efficient.
Indeed.
But with that, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu or Ranting Monkey, you can find all three of us tonight on my channel right here at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for Lords of the Night. I plan on, fingers crossed, having a guest of Sinatra Says to join us for the show, where we will talk about the news of the day, stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. So looking forward to that. But anyway, everyone, thank you so much for your attendance, your participation, and most especially your generosity. Appreciate it very much. Satsu, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me on this wonderful discovery and journey of racial bias education.
No problem at all.
All right. Everyone, again, thank you so much for joining us. Satsu, thank you for joining me. I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.